Alright, here's the thing. I tipped an acquaintance 10% at a restaurant, and now he's out here trashing my name, telling our mutual friends that I'm some kind of cheap, lousy tipper. And it's not just a passing comment, either. This guy's gone out of his way to paint me in this awful light, and apparently, people are buying into it. I mean, I've had friends come up to me, straight-faced, asking if it's true that I left such a horrible tip, as if I'd committed some kind of social crime. So let me lay it all out for you because clearly, this situation has spiraled into something bigger than it should have ever been. First off, let's establish the nature of our so-called relationship. We're not close. We don't hang out, we don't talk beyond the occasional hello at parties. That's it. Barely acquaintances, really. I know his name, he knows mine, and that's the extent of it. So, I'm not feeling some burning sense of obligation to go out of my way for him, especially when he's supposed to be doing a job. Keep that in mind. A few weeks ago, I went out to eat with some friends at this restaurant where he happens to work. It wasn't planned or anything, I didn't even know he'd be my server until he showed up at the table. And let me tell you, this dude was awful at his job. I'm talking about one of those experiences where you start off patient, but halfway through the meal, you're seriously regretting not going somewhere else. The guy got my order wrong, not just once but twice, and it wasn't even complicated. How hard is it to remember no onions? On top of that, he was practically non-existent throughout the night. Never checked in to see how things were going, didn't bother refilling drinks, and pretty much just left us to fend for ourselves. But here's the kicker, while I'm sitting there, glass empty, he's over at another table, mingling like he's the guest of honor. Apparently, he knew the people at that table, and instead of doing his actual job, he spent a good chunk of the evening laughing and doing shots with them. I get it, you know people, but when you're on the clock, be professional. It's not that hard. So by the end of the meal, I'm already irritated. The bill comes, it's $160. I leave a $16 tip. Yeah, I know the whole tipping culture in the US typically expects 20%, but why would I tip 20% when the service was that bad? He didn't earn it. And here's the thing, I didn't stiff him. I didn't walk out without leaving a tip at all, even though I honestly thought about it for a second. I left him 10%, which was more than generous considering the disaster of service he provided. And now, instead of just taking that and reflecting on how maybe he could have done his job better, he's going around telling everyone I'm cheap. Like, really? You screw up at your job and then you have the nerve to gossip about me because I didn't tip you what you think you're entitled to? Here's a little tip for you, good service equals good tips. You don't get a pass just because we know each other in passing. But here's where it gets worse. He's not just vending to a couple of friends, he's telling mutual friends. People I see regularly, people I have actual relationships with, who then come back to me and ask why I tipped so low, like I owe this guy an explanation. And this is what gets me, the nerve of it all. Not only did he completely fail at his job, but now he's trying to turn it into a social issue. Like I'm the bad guy for not handing over extra money to make up for his incompetence. And listen, I'm not some tipping miser. I tip well when the service is good. Hell, I've tipped 25 to 30% before when the server really goes above and beyond. But this wasn't one of those times. This was the kind of service where 10% was more than enough, and honestly, if I wasn't someone who generally respects the service industry, I would have left less. But I didn't. I gave him what he earned that night. So now, I'm stuck in this ridiculous situation where people are judging me over a tip, as if it's some reflection of my entire character. And what's worse is that I know for a fact some of these people haven't even heard my side of the story. They've just accepted his version without question. The guy who couldn't even be bothered to refill a glass is suddenly the voice of moral tipping standards? I mean, think about that for a second. It's laughable. The guy was off getting drunk with another table, ignoring half his job, and now he's trying to guilt-trip me for not giving him more than what he deserved. And for what? To feel better about himself? To save face after a night where he clearly dropped the ball? It's pathetic, really. But the real kicker is the fact that I'm the one who's left having to deal with the fallout of it. I've got people side-eyeing me, acting like I'm the villain in this story, when all I did was respond to bad service with a fair tip. At the end of the day, I'm not apologizing for tipping based on merit. If you do your job well, you get rewarded for it. If you don't, well, that's on you. I'm not here to subsidize your bad behavior just because we happen to know each other. And if he wants to make a big deal out of it, that says a lot more about him than it ever will about me. So to him, and anyone else spreading this nonsense, grow up. It's just a tip. Not a statement on our entire relationship, not a reflection of my generosity as a person. It's a reflection of one night of bad service. He got what he earned. End of story.